Last month we talked about how to break bad habits. So let me give you a quick review. Humans are creatures of habit, and that's because we have recurring needs and we need to come up with a fast, convenient shortcut to meet these needs without having to think through every step of the process. So for example, brushing your teeth. We know that we have a need to clean our teeth every day, but we don't want to think through every step of the process, so we form a habit so we can brush our teeth on autopilot without giving it a lot of thought. But there are some needs that are harder to meet than others, and it's possible for those hard to meet needs that we can form bad habits or destructive habits or sinful habits because we've believed a lie that these sinful habits would meet those needs. Let me give you just some very simple examples. A person who has low self-esteem and they feel like a failure, well, they have a legitimate need for approval and recognition. But if they don't know how to get that need met correctly, they could become a workaholic. And that's a dysfunctional habit to get people to notice them and recognize them and approve of them. Or someone who's in a lot of emotional pain because of their very traumatic past, their need is to lessen the emotional pain. So they could get involved in drugs and alcohol to try to subdue the pain, and that's a destructive habit which they believe the lie that that's going to solve their pain. And it's very hard to break a bad habit through force of will, because you may stop the habit, but the need is still unmet, and that's just going to pull you right back into that habit or another destructive habit. But the good news is God has given us tools to break bad habits. Now, last month I explained that Jesus wants to give you the truth that will break the power of the lie that's leading you into the bad habit. And I've left a link to that blog so you can go back and review that. But this week I want to give you another way of approaching bad habits. Now, when humans were created, we had built-in legitimate emotional needs. And it was God's original plan that all of those needs would be supplied at the tree of life in the Garden of Eden. See, the tree of life was the source of God's love. It was actually God's personality to meet all of our needs. But when Adam fell, he turned to the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And that cut himself off from God's love, which was intended to meet all his needs. So now Adam had to depend on his own knowledge to get his needs met. And so ever since, humans have been trying to find their own way to get their needs met, and that's why we have so often fallen into destructive habits. So how do we break a destructive habit? Because it's based on a legitimate need. The key is to go back to the tree of life the way God originally intended. He wants us to come back to His love as our source of all of our needs so we don't need the habits. So how do you do that? Is by establishing a close relationship with Jesus. That's the key. It's your relationship with Jesus. Because the closer your relationship to Him, the more you connect with God's love, the more He meets your emotional needs and the habit becomes unnecessary. Also, the closer you get to Jesus, the less you want to be involved in sinful habits because you don't want anything to interfere with your relationship. So if you're struggling with bad habits, dysfunctional habits, or sinful habits, stop beating yourself up. Stop being overwhelmed with guilt and shame because Jesus is standing beside you right now, waiting to set you free. You just need to begin to strengthen your relationship with Him. Start a conversation with Him. Ask Him questions. Listen to His voice speaking to you. Get involved in a Christian community. Study the Bible. And as the more you get to know Jesus and He pours His love into you, the less you'll need the bad habits. But some habits are harder to let go than others, and you just might need to get extra help. And so talk to a Christian counselor. Get in touch with me. I'd be happy to help walk you through the healing process from bad habits. Just make an appointment with me. So to live a transformed life, you need to be free of your bad habits by returning to the tree of life the way God originally intended us to be. So now I want to hear from you. How have you overcome sinful or destructive or bad habits? Just leave your comments in the box below because we want to hear your testimony because it will encourage others. And if this is your first visit here, you need to get my free self-assessment guide. And to do that, just subscribe to my weekly email newsletter by filling out the subscription form, and you know where that is. It's always right there. I'll talk to you again next week, but this week, get back to the tree of life. Strengthen your relationship with Jesus and listen to his voice.